The views and opinions expressed by the participants on this show are not necessarily those of Stewart Information Services Corporation, Stewart Title, or Stewart Insurance. Before you make any investment, you should seek the advice of your investment advisor or attorney.
Whether you're a real estate broker, realtor, homeowner, buyer, or seller, everything matters when it comes to real estate. This is Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. Stewart Title's Bill Napick and guests open the door to what really matters in owning, buying, and selling real estate. And now, Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title, brought to you by Stewart Insurance. Here to inform, entertain, and inspire, Bill Napick.
Happy New Year and welcome to Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title, along with our producer, Garrett Jones. My name is John Bramblett with Stewart Insurance, and while this is the first show of 2021, we'll be pinch hitting for our host, Bill Napick. So welcome to 2021 and welcome to Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. We're very fortunate today to have our first guest be Heidi Waring, a realtor with Compass Real Estate. Welcome, Heidi, and Happy New Year.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy New Year to you, too.
I'd like to kind of begin our conversation with looking a little bit back into 2020. What were some of the things that you had to do as a realtor to adapt how you handle business, your processes and procedures, in order to be supportive of your clients?
Well, when the pandemic first hit, I would have to say it was a little difficult at first. A lot of real estate on the table that was lost, and we kind of had to step back and punt, so to speak, on how we were going to handle it because we weren't even for sure if we were going to be considered essential workers at the beginning. So once we were considered essentials, you still had to, kind of monitor and navigate your clients' fears of people in their homes or, buyers going into strange homes. So we adopted a lot of tech tools. So we did virtual showings. It started out with a lot of Facebook Live type events, and then HAR, the MLS here in Houston, quickly got on board and created a virtual open house tool. And it lasted 30 minutes, and you could go in and start the open house, tour the home, give commentary, and at the very end, there were questions that could be answered. So that was a big help there. Obviously, this is nothing new, but all documents at that point are, signed electronically. So, being in close proximity to anyone was, relegated that way. Zoom calls became very important, just like any other kind of business during the pandemic. And also, to keep in touch with buyers and sellers and past clients, we started doing Facebook Live events, from wine tastings to happy hours to hiring a guitar player to play for past clients. You just had to start getting really creative about how to keep in touch with people.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that creativity and the use of technology. So you did a lot of really creative things with technology to adapt how you're doing your business, and an example you gave was the virtual tours, home
Right.
tours. What were some of the things that you did to help to counsel your buyers and sellers? Because this was a whole new world for them as well.
Absolutely. And, it really kind of depended on the client, what their comfort level was. So I found if I had clients that were a bit older, they're a little wary of going into homes. So a lot of times I would do the initial legwork and go to the homes and do a FaceTime video with them. Or if they weren't familiar with FaceTime, I got real familiar with a Gimel and did that and created a video, and then would meet with them and show them. And then that way they could determine if it was something that they really wanted to move forward with. It's not wasting the seller's time or the buyer's time.
So it's, in a sense, it's the same song that you're still adapting to however your clients like to do business. It's just now you're using some technologies that maybe we weren't familiar with 12 months ago.
Right. And technology that you were kind of forced into learning due to the circumstance. But I think the benefit is long term, it's going to stay. I don't think that it will, end with the pandemic and the vaccine.
I was going to ask you that with the adaptation of some of the technology. Do you think that's going to be an additional arrows in your quiver, so to speak, about how you're going to do business going forward?
I do, because, when you're a seller and you have a home, a lot of people are fine with doing open houses and a lot of people aren't comfortable with it. So the virtual open house is the perfect way to do that and get buyers in your home. And that way you're just kind of vetting who's getting in there.
So I know that you work with buyers and sellers all over the city.
Right.
But you do have a special place in your heart for the Spring Branch Memorial area.
Yes.
Share us a little bit about kind of how that area functioned from a real estate perspective in 2020, and how do you think it's going to be in 2021?
Well, I live in that area, so I kind of see what's going on firsthand. So Spring Branch is divided up into a lot of different price points and a lot of different areas. If you've got Spring Valley and Hillshire Village, which are the higher ends, but it breaks down to Westview Terrace, Pine Terrace, Spring Shadows. And the great thing about Spring Branch is there is usually a price point for just about everyone. So I just see it getting better and better because the school system is highly rated. Land is getting more expensive, but in relative terms, I think a lot of builders are thinking it's still a good price to build new to, get kids into the school system in a lot of those areas.
So if I was a first-time home buyer and I had an interest in living in Spring Branch and Memorial, or anywhere in Houston for that matter, what would be some of the points that you would counsel me, as I go into this venture for the first time?
Well, I think as a first-time home buyer, first of all, I love working with first-time home buyers. I really do. I think for a first-time home buyer, as they're coming into the market, the largest buying group right now, or a large buying group, is ages 30 through 39, the millennials. And they're coming in the market, and they are purchasing homes that are $500,000 for their starting homes. I would just say for them to, and if you're not at that price point, to just not be daunted by that, and don't get caught up in I have to have 20% down for this and that for a down payment. I think just start doing your research, find the areas that you want to live in. There are areas all over the city that can meet your budget. And then just get in contact with a realtor that has great contacts with a lender that can get you with programs that you don't have to have that amount of money. You can get in for a lot less than that now, and I think a lot of people get worried about that.
So have a feel for where you'd like to live.
Right.
Have a feel for what your budget truly is. Find a realtor that has some experience and has some connections, and partner up with that realtor to find the best opportunity for yourself.
Absolutely, but I do think it's really important for a first-time buyer or any buyer, before you even start the process, you have to be in touch with a lender or a bank to get your pre-approval letter. It doesn't make any sense to start looking for something if you're not qualified for it. And then the other thing is that you need to keep into account is that sellers during the pandemic, they're not opening their homes just to anyone, right? So they want the buyers vetted usually before they ever come into the house. So the first step is to talk to a lender, figure out your budget, and move forward at that point and decide what you want most for your living.
Well, that makes sense. So that first step is to see what kind of financing you can have, so you truly know what I can and cannot afford. Because, as you said, people are a little leery as having a stranger in their home. So if they're going to invite somebody in their home to see it, they want to make sure that person that truly has an opportunity to buy it.
100%.
Okay. So you've given us all this great information today, and I know our listeners are going to want to reach out and want to visit with you some more. So what's the best way for them to contact you, Heidi?
Well, they can contact me via email at heidi.waring@compass.com. Or they can call me at 232-567-7700, or they can find me on the Compass website.
Give us that phone number and email address again.
It's heidi.waring@compass.com, and my last name is spelled a little strange. It's WEHRING, and then my phone is 832-567-7700.
You've been listening to Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. We've been visiting with Heidi Waring with Compass Real Estate. Thank you, Heidi. We appreciate you being our guest.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
You're listening to Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. My name's John Bramblett with Stewart Insurance, and I'm pinch hitting for Bill Napick in the first show of 2021. Our next guest is Blake Bravo, a loan officer with Cornerstone Home Lending. Welcome, Blake, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, John. Thanks for having me.
We really do appreciate you being here with us. You know, as we begin 2021, we saw a lot of activity last year in the real estate market. Is this still a good time to buy a home? And if so, why is that?
Right. I've always felt like it's a good time to buy. I mean, even being with Cornerstone for over 8 years now, I've seen where rates have been in the low 5s to high 4s, and now where we're at being historic lows in the mid to high 2s. So from a historical rate standpoint, it's a great time to buy because you're talking about a savings of, it can be hundreds of dollars or even thousands, depending upon the loan amount size. So for buyers, it's a great time to tackle on a new home, and you can't beat the low rates right now.
So kind of expanding upon that, as you look into your crystal ball for 2021, what would you tell your current clients or prospective clients about what it looks like in the home market and the real estate market in Houston and beyond? Right.
I think 2021 is going to be, once again, kind of what we've seen in 2020, very competitive. Most home buyers, we've seen a lot of multiple offer situations, which is why it's very important to get pre-approved prior to finding the right home, because when it goes to home shopping, you got to be ready to place an offer on the table and have a lender that can vouch to the listing agent and seller saying that we have verified all asset and income documentation and that we're going to anticipate a very smooth closing. So it's really important to kind of have your ducks in a row when it comes to buying that home.
So what are some of the things that a client of yours can do to prepare, to make sure that they have their ducks in a row, to make sure that they have everything that they can do to have the best loan package possible?
Right. And when it comes to buying a house, I think the best thing to do is, it does not matter how far out you are as far as buying a home. I typically tell clients, either if you're 6 months or even a year out, it's never too early to begin the home process. It allows us to build a roadmap for clients and determine their mortgage financing goals, because ultimately that's what we're looking at. We're looking at down payment goals, monthly payment goals, and that helps us kind of tailor up and customize a loan package for that particular client. So I would say it's never too early to begin the process.
So we're visiting with Blake Bravo, a loan officer with Cornerstone Home Lending, on Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. If I'm putting that package together, and I'm thinking at some point in 2021 I want to buy a home, so I want to start that process. And before I come to see you, what are the kind of elements or the paperwork, the documentation that I would need to have for you?
Right. Well, I'll go into a lot of the new items that we need to be prepared for, being where we are with COVID-19.
Okay.
And that's really extra verification on employment.
Okay.
So it's going to be important to know that we are going to be doing some verification up front at the beginning, and then closer to when you're going to be closing on your house, to ensure that you're still employed, and also, more importantly, that there haven't been any changes to the income. There haven't been any pay cuts. You haven't been furloughed. So it's a little bit more verification that we have to do on our end for when someone's buying a house on their employer. But as far as documentation, W-2s, pay stubs, bank statements are some of the basic items that you can anticipate for when buying a home.
Is there any period of time that you need to look at, last 3 years, 5 years?
Right. As far as years, we would look at the last 2 years for W-2 income, the most recent 30 days worth of pay stubs, and the most recent 2 months bank statements. And I always try to tell my clients up front that when it comes to documenting loans, there's always additional documentation that we're going to need. And do I want to request it? No, but it's to have the I's dotted and T's crossed. And what does that mean? That could be an additional bank statement that has expired. That could be an additional pay stub that has expired. So I always say, just be prepared to submit your documents. We'll make it as painless as possible. But we're pretty good at educating our clients up front on the documentation that they need.
But regardless of how prepared we are, we've got to be willing to be patient, as you said, and pivot, because there's going to be changes throughout the process. And because of the way the job market has changed so much because of the pandemic, be willing to verify employment and salary, both beginning of the process and towards the end.
Absolutely.
So if I was a home buyer coming in, you had mentioned earlier a bit about that it's the sellers. It's a seller's market right now, and they're getting multiple offers. What kind of counsel would you, if we begin this process and it's obvious that I'm serious about buying a home, what would you tell me as far as what should I do when I find a home that I like?
Right. When you find a home that you like, it's important to get pre-approved and to determine which loan product works best for you financially. There's different loans, from a VA loan to a conventional loan to an FHA loan. And every loan has different guidelines, different requirements, and it's important for us as mortgage advisors to really educate our clients in knowing what goes into a mortgage, what are the pros and cons of one versus the other. That way they can make the best financial decision based upon their short-term or long-term mortgage financing goals and for their family.
When you're working with clients now and you're counseling them on being pre-approved before they even start the process, and we've gone through the different paperwork that we need and knowing that we're going to have to pivot from time to time on the information that needs to be provided, what counsel would you provide if I'm out there shopping and I'm working with a realtor like Heidi that we had on earlier, and I come across a home that I like? Right.
And when a client goes across a home that they love, it's important, when in the market that we're in, being a multiple offer situation for most homes, it's important to make our clients' offers stand out from the rest. In order to do that, what I typically do as a loan officer is I call the listing agent. And what I do is I spend about 5 minutes on the phone with them, explaining that my client, represented by buyer's agent Bob Smith, for example, my clients are making an offer on a home, and that we have verified all of their income and asset documentation, and we anticipate a smooth closing. What this does is this really does set out the offer from the rest, because when it comes to buying a home, or at least from a seller's perspective, they want to be able to sell that home and know that the buyer is going to be smooth as far as the financing goes, that there's not going to be any, cracks that occur during the process.
So you and your team at Cornerstone Home Lending take the time, go that extra mile, so to speak, to make sure that the seller's agent is aware that this is a legitimate candidate, and that if you accept their offer, there'll be little or no headaches along the way.
Right. When we can really set that expectation to the listing agent, it 9 times out of 10 will help their offer stand out.
What are some of the other things that you and your team at Cornerstone Home Lending, Blake, do to make that process easier, better, more successful for your clients?
Right. I mean, I have a wonderful team, from a production partner, Brody, and a loan processor, Ashley, and a marketing coordinator, Gabriella, who help really set the stage for our team to make it as smooth and memorable for the clients. Because when someone's buying a home, we don't want this to be a one-time transaction. The way that we preach it to our clients is this is relational, not transactional. And our number one goal is to have our clients become a client for life and come back on their next home purchase. Because when you look at a house, it's the biggest debt, or you can call it an asset, because homes do tend to appreciate in the Houston market. It's the biggest asset and debt that someone takes out in his or her life.
So if somebody is not in the Houston market, because we have listeners all over the country, and they're interested in either purchasing a home in Houston as a second home or as an investment property, or they're moving to Houston, can they also work with you and your team on getting that loan package together, so as they begin the search process?
Absolutely. They can reach out to me for primary residence, second homes, and investment properties.
So what are some of the other things about Cornerstone that separates it from other lending resources in the city.
Right. Everything that we do with Cornerstone Home Lending takes place in-house. And so what that means is we have full control of the process. We have in-house processing, in-house underwriting, in-house closing, in-house funding. So we have protocols that we can really push files.
The seller's agent and explain that your client has been pre-qualified and there should not be any issues in the closing. What are some of the other assets that Cornerstone brings to the table?
Right. As far as the assets that we bring to the table, it would be in-house everything, and that goes from processing to underwriting to closing to funding. Everything that we do takes place within our doors in Houston. So your loan's not going to be bouncing from Houston to Michigan to Tennessee, anything like that. So we all take care of it within our doors.
And so if there's a conversation that needs to be had between departments to move things along, it's a walk down the hall, so to speak, versus having to wait for somebody in the other side of the country.
Absolutely. And my clients, when they begin to work with me, they'll have my direct cell phone number so they can always call, email, and text me. And that's the service that we offer to, when it comes to creating that client for life. Because whenever a client does decide to make an offer on a home and it's 7:00 at night and they need that pre-approval letter, unfortunately, bigger banks aren't going to be open. But with Cornerstone, we're 24/7. We're ready to go.
So we're visiting with Blake Bravo, a loan officer with Cornerstone Home Lending. If one of our listeners wants to get a hold of you to talk about the lending process and getting started and looking for a new home, how best for them to get a hold of you?
Right. They can reach me on my direct line, which is 713-353-7567. They can also email me at bbravo@houseloan.com, or they can visit my website, www.blakebravo.com.
You're listening to Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. We've been visiting with Blake Bravo at Cornerstone Home Lending. Thanks, Blake. Appreciate you being with us, and Happy New Year.
If you're a real estate professional, then listen closely. Cyber criminals are targeting our industry. They are impersonating real estate professionals, homebuyers, sellers, and title agents. Their goal is to gain access to your inboxes, computers, and clients so they can steal information and funds. Does your business insurance offset these risks? Not sure? Contact Stewart Insurance to determine if your business is properly insured. Visit stewartinsurance.com or call 866-798-2827. Visit stewartinsurance.com or call 866-798-2827.
You're listening to Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. My name is John Bramblett with Stewart Insurance. I'm pitch hitting for our host, Bill Napick. Our next guest is the Executive Director of the Cathedral Urban Service Experience, or CUES, Christy Orman. Welcome to Real Estate Matters, Christy, and Happy New Year.
Oh, Happy New Year. Thank you so much for having CUES on Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. We're so happy to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you as well. For those in the Houston area and beyond that listen to our show that may not be familiar with CUES, why don't you let the folks know a little bit about the Cathedral Urban Service Experience?
Yeah, so you said it. So CUES stands for Cathedral Urban Service Experience. It is a short-term urban mission experience serving Houston for over 12 years. So we partner with some amazing agencies, some nonprofits. We have the Beacon, Interfaith Ministries of Greater Houston, Buffalo Bayou Partnership, Emergency Aid Coalition. So what's so beautiful about it is that we do anything from urban gardening with our groups all the way to doing some laundry and serving food. So we have just been in the Houston area for, over 12 years, and that is where we serve. We use people from all over the country come, and in a non-pandemic time, they come and stay in our space downtown. And during a pandemic time, we're still able to use their gifts and service to serve.
So let's talk a little bit about it from a non-pandemic time. If an organization reached out to you and said, we'd like to come and do a service project in the inner city of Houston, how would that process work?
Yeah, so we have our online, so we have cueshouston.org. We have an interest form, and so the group leader would go on there and kind of tell us a little bit about what their group is looking for. We have groups that are as young as third grade and as old as, 90. So as long as they want to come and serve in Houston, we take everybody. And so they would fill out that interest form, and that would let me know when they wanted to come into the city. And then that would also let me know what kind of service they're looking for, because the idea is to really mold that service experience to what the group wants to do, right? So we really try to promote missional living and not just one-stop volunteerism. We really want this to stretch out and to also for these groups to take that back to where they're from. So they fill out an interest form, and then we get the ball rolling and figure out how we can get them serving in Houston.
So we're visiting with Christy Orman, the Executive Director of the Cathedral Urban Service Experience, CUES, on Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. So you had mentioned prior to the pandemic, so obviously groups aren't coming in and staying at your facility. So how has CUES pivoted during the pandemic to still provide service opportunities?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think that we have so many other organizations that are also pivoting with us. So I think it was back in March we decided that we had to go ahead and try something different and try to explore with what we have and our amazing agencies that we work with. So we sat down with a few of our favorite nonprofits, and we created a virtual experience. And so what we do is we have like this summer, for example, we had a group from Austin and a group from Houston that from the comfort of their own homes all joined us on Zoom. And we were able to chat with with a different nonprofit each day, and then do a service project in our own homes. But we were coming together. We were working together apart. And so we actually have 4 different options that people can use, because I think each group is different. Some groups are getting together right now, and some groups are not. And so we have some that are completely virtual and at your own pace, and then some are live. So we have some live options as well. So we just had to figure out how we could still serve our agencies that we have. And so we have conversations with them to see how we could best serve them, even if we were not on their property. So the group that came this summer, they decided to use the choose your own experience option out of our options.
So the group that came this summer, the one from Austin and the one for Houston that did the service, what specific kind of things did they do to help the nonprofits that they were working with?
Yeah, so we had 3 different nonprofits. So we had The Beacon, which serves our homeless neighbors in downtown Houston. We had New Hope Housing, which is another amazing organization that does affordable housing. And so you guys, Real Estate Matters, about affordable housing. So they help people they have a facility that they have holistic care. So they help people that are staying in their facilities and help them, maintain their entire life, as well as giving them a home where they do pay rent and all that. So we were able to have, on the first day, we had New Hope Housing, and we actually made keychains. So New Hope Housing has a lot of clients that this might be their first home. This might be their first set of keys. So we always like to have some fun, something to give those new clients, those new residents. So we made keychains and also a little keychain key holder. And so we talked to the person, Sarah, who was their volunteer coordinator, and worked with her. And then the next day we talked with The Beacon, and we made masks. So we had some no-sew masks that we made out of old T-shirts. And so that was a great, fun project. Because I don't know about you, but I'm always losing my mask. And so our friends who are experiencing homelessness could really use some extra masks. And so that's where those no-sew masks went to. And then we chatted with Interfaith Ministries for Greater Houston. And so they are an amazing organization that on a normal day, they serve 5,000 meals a day. And so they have really been pivoting with what they're doing with their people. So we chatted with them for a bit, and then we made some dog toys. And so we really have sat down with our nonprofits and really just try to figure out how we can serve them and what is actually useful. Because sometimes we decide what we want to do, and the nonprofits don't necessarily need it, right? So that's a piece of our pivoting, was sitting down with them and finding out what exactly we could do to help.
So part of your responsibility as an executive director for CUES, beyond helping the organizations that still have a desire to provide some service work for the inner city, is working with the nonprofits that you partner with to help them figure out how they can pivot during this new reality that we live in.
Right. So, yeah. So I think chatting with them and seeing the challenges, with COVID, you have a large population that were already living on the margins and may now be experiencing homelessness, but you also have a huge population of people who have never needed assistance. And so these nonprofits are doing an amazing job by not only figuring out how to serve contactless and safely, but they're also figuring out how to help this huge population and just the numbers going so much larger, and figuring out how to serve everybody well. And so like the Beacon, who serves our homeless neighbors, they went from being open 5 days a week to being open 7 days a week. And so what they did was the normal kind of volunteer would go in, prepare a meal, serve a meal, and then clean up after the meal. That was one piece of the volunteer. And so now they would box those meals and just kind of had a line of people coming through and passing out those meals. They've now been able to, because they also do laundry service and showers. And so they've been able to slowly but surely open up to a small amount of people to be able to come in each day to do that laundry and do those showers. And so, and also trying to figure out, they've been doing such an amazing job, these agencies, because when they're like, a huge portion of their hands and feet are volunteers, trying to figure out how to do that. It's like with Interfaith Ministries for Greater Houston with their Meals on Wheels program, they had 5,000 meals per day. And so they had to really figure out how, without as many volunteers as they once had, how to do that. And also, I'm not sure if you know this, they give out 11,000 pounds of pet food each month. So one of the projects, if you wanted to do the virtual experience, is to have a pet food drive, because 11,000 pounds of pet food is a big amount. And so I think a lot of organizations are also seeing that the donations are different because everybody is in need. So they're also they're reimagining and figuring out different ways to reach their volunteers, but also reach those that in the past have donated. So, but they're doing an amazing job, and Houston is just so lucky to have these amazing organizations doing and figuring it out as they go, and really coming together. They come together. The Search Institute, the city of Houston really does have a core where they all have the same mission, is to help people find housing and to get off the margins.
So you had mentioned a few minutes ago, we're visiting with Christy Orman, the executive director of the Cathedral Urban Service Experience. You had mentioned a few minutes ago that you and your team have created some alternative service options during the time when we may not be able to be face-to-face with each other. Would you mind sharing with our listeners what those options are?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I think what's so great about these options that we have created together as a steering committee is that these can be done every month of the year. You don't have to wait for a certain holiday. You don't have to wait for the summertime or spring break. So say your real estate brokerage firm hasn't been together maybe in these 9-10 months that we've been apart. So you want to find a way to bring them together and just do some service. So you can do, what's so nice about these is that if you are still apart and you need to do it completely virtual, each person in their home, you have that option. And if you are meeting together and you're in the same space, we have an option for you as well. So we have the DIY experience, which you get to choose one nonprofit. And this one is a license for 30 people. So if your team is larger than 30, we can have a longer conversation about it. But this is meant for about a license of 30 people. And you get to choose one nonprofit. You get to choose one service project. And what's great is that you get access to these videos for 1 month. So if you would like to kind of spread this out over a weekend with your crew and your team, then you can. You can watch the videos of the nonprofit. Then you can go on the next day and sit down and do the service project together. And so that's just one of the options. So that's the DIY experience. And then we have the service learning experience. And that one you have, so maybe you have one team or one, this one's a little bit geared towards like a classroom kind of setting or like a home family setting. But I think we can really adapt this if we have a smaller group. So maybe any of our listeners are a real estate team that want to get together and do this. This might work for you. So this one, you actually get 3 nonprofits. They're a little bit shorter videos, kind of condensed together. You still get one service project that will help one of those 3 places, and then you also actually get a certificate that you did some service hours. So maybe you're in an organization that has to turn in service hours. We have a nice certificate for you to for your leader to fill out and turn in. We also have something called, and so those 2 are videos that you have access to for a month. These next 2 are live. So that's something that really speaks to your group. We have the serving together experience. And this is something that has maybe your property management firm is very large and you have maybe once a week that you guys meet or once a month that y'all meet. And so this is going to be 1 full hour and it's going to be live. And it's going to be via Zoom. And so it's going to be 1 live interview with a nonprofit. And then what's so cool about this one is that you get to have breakout rooms where you kind of get these one-on-ones with the nonprofit. And so you get to ask them questions. And so maybe there's something about the nonprofit that you've wondered. And this is a time to have those conversations. And then you have 1 live instruction, a service project. And so, yeah, that is the serving together experience. And our last experience is the choose your own experience. And so this is going to be a live interview and live instruction. And this one is meant to be for about 30 people. So it's a license for 30 people. And what's cool about this is that you have multiple options for your nonprofit. So this is kind of the example of our folks that came this summer. We did 3 days. And so you can choose to do 1 day. You can choose to do 4 days. It really depends on what works for your schedule. And so we do these. This one is over Zoom. And we're in, and this is about 30 people, so we can all fit on one page. And so we sit down and we hear from the nonprofit. And then we get to do, you get multiple service project options. And so that one is called the Choose Your Own Experience. And so we really tried as a steering committee to sit down and think about how we can help multiple different groups that, they might be a knitting group that gets together, or it might be an organization that works together and sees that service is an important piece of their mission, of their mission statement. And so we really sat down and try to find something that fits for everybody. So, yeah.
So if we have I really do appreciate you making the time to visit with us. We're visiting with Christy Orman, the Executive Director of the Cathedral Urban Service Experience, and commend you and your team on the fantastic work that you're doing. If one of our listeners, whether they be another nonprofit group or if they're a real estate professional or a group of realtors that would like to get together and learn more about how they could work with you for a service project for the inner city of Houston, what would be the best way for them to get a hold of you, Christy?
Oh, the best way I would say is email. So it's CUSE, so Q's, at ChristChurchCathedral.org. And so make sure you do some spell check for Cathedral, but it's Q's, C-U-S-E, at christchurchcathedral.org. You also have the option to go to qshouston.org and go to the Contact Us, and that way you'll know that you spelled it correctly. So we have that interest form, as I mentioned earlier, on our qshouston.org website. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest. It's at Q's Houston.
Fantastic. Well, we've been visiting with Christy Orman, the Executive Director of Cathedral Urban Service Experience. Thank you, Christy, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
In today's litigious society, it is imperative to have the proper insurance to offset the many risks facing your business, especially if you're a real estate broker. Your errors and omissions and cyber liability insurance can help limit the threat of these risks if you know what to look for. Not sure if your insurance addresses the risks facing your business? Contact Stewart Insurance to be confident your brokerage can withstand these risks. Stewart Insurance, 866-798-2827. StewartInsurance.com. That's StewartInsurance.com or call 866-798-2827.
You're listening to Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. My name is John Bramblett, pitch hitting for our host, Bill Napick. Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title would not be possible without our partner, Stewart Insurance. With a focus in real estate and a special focus on real estate brokers, Stewart Insurance creates insurance plans to address the risks facing our industry today. They invest a significant amount of their time helping real estate broker owners offset and manage their risks. Today, we have the president of Stewart Insurance, Tom Carpentier, as our guest. Welcome to Real Estate Matters, Tom, and Happy New Year.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me, and Happy New Year to you as well.
We're so excited to begin the 2021 season for Real Estate Matters, and so glad that you were able to be our guest. When you've been our guest in the past, or when I've been the guest on the show, or when folks have been interacting with us, they'll hear a lot about this idea of being properly insured. But and it's more than just a theme or a concept. It really is a way of life and a way of doing things. But there's a process that you and the team have put together to ensure that people are properly insured. And part of that process is just asking the right types of questions. Would you mind today elaborating on some of the questions that you and the team and those discussions that you have with prospects and clients, to make sure they are properly insured?
Absolutely. I appreciate the question, and you hit the nail on the head. It absolutely starts with our intent, which is, we really strive to be the best at properly insuring our clients. And to do this, we start by determining, first and foremost, why a prospective client is connecting with us. Oftentimes they have a problem or a perceived problem, and this can be that they feel they're paying too much for their insurance, but oftentimes it's really they themselves want to be confident that they're properly insured. So this really aligns with our approach and intent. I'll tell you this about our team and our advisors. They all have the heart of life learners and teachers. So every interaction that we are lucky enough to have with a client or prospective client is an opportunity to learn from that client, but most importantly, really provide some insight that a client may not have considered regarding their insurance plan. So we really start by working to determine what clients want to solve, satisfy, or achieve with their insurance and risk management plan. At the end of the day, as I said, clients really want to be confident that they're properly insured. And so oftentimes, if you look at it, where does that lack of confidence potentially come from? Well, it oftentimes comes from a potential claim or situation, or a claim was filed, and there's oftentimes coverage disputes, and when a claim is filed and those disputes occur, it's often legitimate differences of opinion about the intent of the policy language or the proper way to interpret it. So we really take the responsibility, as advisors, to align the coverage needs that a client has, and make sure those align with the intent of the policies within a client's insurance plan. So how do we go about this? How do we do this? we do it by interviewing our clients and really conducting a joint discovery session, if you will. We'll start by learning about the client and their business. And so since many of our members of our audience are real estate agents or brokers, what we can really do is kind of look at a broker business and maybe specifically we'll look at specifically insurance or professional liability insurance, since most brokers want and quite honestly need this type of coverage. So if somebody's approaching us about professional liability, and we'll use this as an example. There's obviously other lines of insurance that they would be considering, but if we start with that, we start with the basics. We start with the revenue levels of the firm and the makeup of the revenue. Base example would be, what's their mix of residential transactions and commercial real estate transactions. From there, so we'll look at the level of revenue and then that mix, and then we'll look at the number of agents or employees they have. These are two big components in helping us determine what limits of coverage they might need or want to consider. And from there, we'll look at the ownership structure of the firm, which can that can really impact coverage options, because many insurance companies see more or less exposure based on certain affiliations or ownership structure. So we'll look at the revenue, the mix of revenue, and then the ownership structure to get a base understanding of the firm as we go through our discovery and start determining what the best options are for a particular client. And from there, the next step is really to dive deep into the services a firm provides. Again, what's the mix of residential versus commercial real estate transactions? What other services are they providing? Are they providing any property management related services? Are they providing broker opinions for potential valuation of a property? These are all very important to understand, so we can ensure the policy doesn't have any exclusions for the services or things that they're doing as a real estate firm. Once we understand the makeup of the firm and services, we really get into the practices and procedures for the firm. And really, this is more about uncovering things that could lead to claims. So it's more of a risk mitigation process. When we're talking about E&O or professional liability claims, those claims are often filed against real estate firms because their client or a particular party of the transaction feels they suffered some form of financial loss due to negligence of the brokerage firm or the particular agent. And we oftentimes see that this is the result of miscommunication at some level. So we really like to dive into how clients communicate with their clients, with their particular clients, and what their documentation processes and procedures look like. With insurance and insurance claims, and a lot of, in just life in general, oftentimes an ounce of prevention can really go a long way. And time, we've seen that firms that follow consistent means of communication and documentation processes have much greater success when it comes to defense. So that's just an example, again, going through the makeup of the firm, but then diving deeper into their processes and procedures to really not only build a plan that's going to cover them for the services that they're providing, but also kind of building out the plan to include risk management processes and procedures to help eliminate, I wouldn't say eliminate, let's just say reduce the likelihood of a potential claim based on how they're doing business, because even with insurances, that ultimate backstop, having to go through the claims process and the defense process can take your eyes off your core business and what you're ultimately looking to do, which is serve clients and build your business. Really at the end of the day, folks should really seek out insurance professionals that are going to understand their business and services provided, and build a plan that really aligns with how they do business. And just keep in mind, and we've said this time and time, over the shows, that there isn't a one size fits all for an insurance plan. It really needs to be customized.
We're visiting with Tom Carpentier, the president of Stewart Insurance. Tom, you talked a lot today about making sure that you and your team, are in alignment with your clients to ensure that they're properly insured, and also that the intent of the policy matches, the objectives of the client. If we have a real estate brokerage client out there or a property management firm out there that have clients that need home insurance, or if we have just individuals out there that have a need for their own personal insurance, does the team at Stewart Insurance take that same approach, that same idea of making sure that there's alignment and the proper intent when you're working with individuals on their home policies, their home plans, their auto, motorcycle, wind, and flood?
Absolutely, we do. That's 100% our intent and our approach, whether, as you said, if we're working with individuals for their personal insurance, which could include homeowners insurance or other forms of personal insurance, such as auto insurance, motorcycles, we definitely want to understand the client, their lifestyle, their usage of, say, vehicles and things like that, so we can really align the coverages and policies based on what their true needs are. So regardless of whether it's we're working with an individual or we're working with a business within real estate to insure that business, we definitely we really work to understand the needs so we can build a plan. And it's I've said it and you said it. It's oftentimes misunderstanding because both parties haven't really gotten into the details, and there's a mindset that one size fits all, and that's just not the case. So we've all got we have a saying internally, we as advisors, but then also the clients have to be willing to burn a few calories to go through the process to really make sure that everything aligns. And that's what we're more than willing to do that, and we'll take all the time that a client needs. We're not trying to rush through to write a policy. We really want to understand the needs to build a plan that everybody can be confident in.
We're visiting with Tom Carpentier, the president of Stewart Insurance. Tom, if one of our listeners has an interest in burning those calories with a member of your team and coming out with a properly insured plan, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
You can reach us and get us directly at 866-798-2827. That's 866-798-2827. And you can also take a look at our website, stewartinsurance.com, and you can learn more about our approach and what our intent is and what we aim to do for clients. If you feel like you'd want to learn a little bit more about us, you can go there. It's stewartinsurance.com.
You've been listening to Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. To hear past shows, you can visit the iHeartMedia app or stewart.com/Houston. If you'd like to get a hold of a Stewart Title Business Development Officer to help you with any of your closing needs, be sure and visit stewart.com. Also, if you have some additional questions or interest in both business and personal insurance, visit us at stewartinsurance.com. Again, you've been listening to Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. Thank you and Happy New Year.